G'day, hi, and welcome. Alright, so this is another voiceover, as you'll normally get on these videos until I get my mic and mic attachment for my GoPro 5. Okay, lanes. When you learn in a course, it'll be pretty fresh. They'll give you basically 3 lanes. Basically, you got the far right end, left side of the lane, the center of the lane, and the far right side of the lane. And where you ride, there's no one perfect place to ride. It really depends on the road conditions. It depends on the traffic. I tend to like to move far to the right when the traffic is pretty thick on the other side. I tend to ride closer to the middle when I'm near a double passing line, that type of thing, where it's, you got the divide there where you can pass, especially if it's on my side, because what can tend to happen, this is important to keep in mind, that if somebody's behind you and they go to pass you and you're really close to the line, they can clip you trying to come back in, that type of thing. So whenever there's a double line, I might be a little bit closer to the double line, but if there's a broken line, I tend to move away. Then I try to look at it, instead of looking at it as 3 lanes, what about 6? In other words, kind of like 2 positions in each lane, that type of thing. So for the riding close to the line, for example, like a double line like this, what you see, that seems to be okay. But if there's traffic behind you, and again, like I say, you get to the double, or to the passing lane, then I tend to want to be a little bit further, but not necessarily right in the center. That said, when I have the road to myself, I tend to move towards the line, so that if a deer or something comes out, you give yourself a split second more time to react. What if you're in a scenario where there's 2 lanes, and like on a highway or something like that, like the Queensway or the 401, or you have 2 or more lanes? Well, then the center lane kind of gives you sometimes a bit of the the best of both worlds, where you're the furthest away from each vehicle on the other, one on the left of you, one on the right. If it's a 3-lane highway and you're in the center lane, well, you want to give yourself as much room between you and the next vehicle beside you or whatever. So the center might be better there. The other thing too is the center lane. I tend to use it when I'm going, say there's a blind corner, or like a little crescent, or like a hill. I tend to go into the center, and the reason why I tend to go to the center is that if you're all the way to the line, and somebody's, oftentimes, especially if it's a crescent on a turn, what I find is a lot of people tend to come over the line when they're coming at you. So you don't want to be tight to the line there, because you could basically have somebody, you might get clipped by somebody. So why not just go all the way to the right side, to the white line? Well, the problem with that is oh crap, there's a tractor, a hay tractor, hay wagon on the other side of it. And I've had that happen to me a few times too, where they just pulled out or whatever, or they're just on the side of the road just as you get over the crescent. So at least you're out far enough that you can either move out more or whatever. So it's kind of, you got to kind of call the judgment there of where to be in the lane. So when you ride near the white line, now again, road conditions notwithstanding, but one of the reasons why I move towards the white line is I find if there's a lot of traffic behind me, I tend to be closer to the center, but towards the white line. Again, kind of like breaking it up, and if we would look at it starting at, say, the yellow line, you'd say lane 1 and 2, and then in the center you'd say lane 3 and 4, and then to the white line you'd have 5 and 6. So I'll ride, say, lane number 4 if there's traffic coming towards me. I want to be over as much close to the white line as possible. But if I'm all the way, say, in the 6th part of the lane, and I'm right over. You could have somebody try to squeeze by you in the same lane, and I've had that happen before. It's the same if you ride towards the yellow line. If you're in like the very first lane, so to speak, out of the, divide it in three, but then divide each lane into two. You might have somebody try to pass you on the right, and that's always fun when people try to do that to you. Why people do that to you, who knows? But there's always something like that you got to consider. So to drive defensively in your lane to make sure that no matter what, you've got a safe spot and you can kind of control the traffic behind you. Obviously, the center lane's the best for controlling the traffic behind you for the most part. But then there's also ruts and potholes and stuff you have to take, like again, road conditions you have to always take into consideration. That was hard enough to say. Can't speak today. But then again, also too, if you see like where I'm riding here, on the left side of the road, I've got pretty much open field and I can see what's coming at me. But on the right side of the road, the trees are almost overhanging the road. So I don't want to be tight to the white line even when there's vehicles coming in case something runs out. Dog, squirrel, saber-tooth, chipmunk, whatever it might be, or a deer. In the tight areas, it's kind of harder to, you got to just go with whatever you feel is the best. So I see a vehicle, I tend to move over to the right, and if it's a tight spot like this where you don't really have much time to react, if a deer comes even out from the left side of the road, you don't have a lot of time to react here. So you got to be looking well ahead and stuff like that. But again, where do you go? Center lane. There is no one specific lane to ride in. Some people and some riders might not realize this, especially when they're riding really close to the line, the yellow line, that it makes the oncoming traffic nervous. I've heard people talk about it, like, why do these bikers always ride so close to the line? And again, I know why the biker's doing it. He's probably thinking in terms of, is a deer going to pop out or whatever, that type of thing. But he's not thinking in terms of being seen, and he's not thinking in terms of, how big his lane is. I mean, you got, I think, 10 or 11 feet of lane on average on each side. So you got lots of room for a motorcycle to make decisions of where to ride. So if you're riding close to the line and you see traffic, you're probably a bit better to move over for a few reasons. One thing is being seen. This is the biggest problem that bikers kind of overlook. This is the obvious, but they overlook the idea of being seen. They're like, everybody should be watching out for me. But you have to understand, like, it's, for example, I saw a bike today when I was out on my skateboard, and I was at the store, and I saw the car behind it before. It was a black car and a black bike in front of the car. And to tell you the truth, I really didn't. It took a second or two, like I say, just to register that there was a bike in front of the car, even though the car wasn't that far behind. It was maybe 10, 20, 30 feet behind, 40 feet behind, whatever. At low speed, they were just coming through the town at, below 50, that type of thing. But the SUV actually took the whole silhouette of the bike, so maybe it was the car could have been 60 feet behind, right? Whatever it was, whatever the following distance was. And if you were coming out with another vehicle, you might see the car before you'd actually see the bike. And it's a strange illusion, but it works that way. So you need to kind of get yourself somewhere where you stand out in the lane. And when the traffic is coming at you, sometimes if you're really close to the line, believe it or not, if there's another vehicle there, they can't see it. They don't, or it doesn't register. Motorcycles, most people, they look. That's why you get some people, they look right at you, and even people who ride motorcycles themselves, when they're driving in a car, sometimes they don't even realize they're looking at a bike. I think it's just up around this corner here a bit, where there's a guy, he's about to turn left, and I wave at him to make sure I get an acknowledgement before I carry. Yeah, that guy there. That guy was turning left, but I wanted to make sure he seen me, so I waved. He waved back. I moved over. I was already anticipating that this guy might just try to play beat the train, because also you have to understand, most people cannot judge the speed of a motorcycle coming at them. They always think they got more time than they do. So that's on you to keep that in mind. It's not on them, in the sense that, you don't leave your safety in their hands, is what I'm going to say. Is that you have to assume that they can't judge your speed anyway. Little tricks I do. Um, Again, like if I see somebody, if I see their blinker on, I'll wave at them, get them to acknowledge that I'm coming at them, so I don't end up on their hood, and that type of thing. There's also the other thing is that again, when you're picking your lane, sometimes when you're in the center, you're seeing better. Sometimes when you're even farther off to the right, closer to the white line, you're seeing a little bit better. Sometimes if you're following a lot of traffic, being closer to the yellow line is better because, especially if you're following too close behind, like if you're following too close to the vehicle ahead of you, the guys coming at you can't see you 90% of the time if you're in the center lane. And if you have a scenario like I had last week where there was a guy trying to play beat the train with 5 or 10 other vehicles ahead of him, and he ended up passing 3, but he was heading straight at me, you know what I mean, like that type of thing. But I kind of anticipated this, so this guy came out to pass, and he was coming towards me from the other lane, and you know, I moved way over, but he got it. He finally got in, but you know, he obviously picked the worst spot, not the worst spot to pass, but the, you know, try to pass like 5 people at a time, that type of thing. And you get people like that. How he saw me was probably because the car there that was I was way, you know, the guy the other car that I was following was so far ahead that he came out like after that car passed him. He came out right away, so he probably didn't see me even at the safe distance that I was at, but I could see him, so I make the adjustment. He got in there in time, but had he not, I would be riding into the ditch, right? So um, judging your lanes is an art form. You're never going to know what to use all the time, but you know, think about it in 6 lanes instead of 3, and then you might be customized better. All right, have a great day. Eh?